Imagine a hot, sweltering day in Georgia's 100-degree heat as you're waiting in line to vote. Your family members cannot even bring you food or water. This is the reality of Georgia's new voting law that is to be passed effective July 1st. In response to how will Georgia's new election law impact free and fair elections on the county level, I will argue that the new election laws will disproportionately affect black and poor communities. It will reduce voter turnout, and it will give the Republican Party more power in voting over the county. In an article by usatoday.com by Chelsea Cox, I quote, "Civil rights advocates say the restrictions are aimed at voter suppression, particularly for black voters." What does she mean by this? Well, the new Senate Bill 202, which is to be effective July 1st, 2021, requires driver's license, ID, date of birth, and last four digits of your social security for the absentee ballots. This disproportionately affects the poorer and black communities because it is shown that these communities have less access to the forms of identification as they cost money and time and are a process to get to. And so these poorer and black communities will have less access to these absentee ballots to vote. In regards to the absentee ballots, this also drastically reduces the amount of people that are able to vote in these poorer communities because, quote USA Today, number of drop boxes in Georgia's four most populous counties will drop from 94 to 23 in the year 2022. And so, as a result of this less access to drop boxes, poorer communities who have less access to transport and vehicles and time as well will not be able to submit their ballots at drop boxes because of the limitations of drop boxes available close to them in their area. In other regards to reduction of voter turnout, now because of reduced voter drop boxes as well as harsher restrictions on the absentee ballots, we can assume that the voting polls will crowd up much more than usual. Now, on the Senate Bill 202, it states that the people standing in line cannot receive money or gifts, but this includes food and water. So people will be waiting in line for hours in the hot sun without food or water, and they have to stay there. And so this drastically reduces your voter turnout. People cannot go because of health issues. People cannot go because it's just unpleasant and it's hard to stand in a line in the sun for a bunch of hours just to be able to vote. There are other restrictions on the Senate bill that will reduce people from coming, like limits on how close you can stand to the voting station, to the next voter in front of you, as well as other things along the lines of this. This brings me to my last point about the new voting election bill in Georgia. This bill gives the Republican Party way more power in concerning the voting and the election. The Senate, the Secretary of State has been removed from the election board, and it will now be replaced by a member that will be elected by the committee. A NewYorkTimes.com quote, an article written by Nick Corasaniti and Reed J. Epstein, the Secretary of State shall be an ex officio non-voting member of this board, which will give the Republican Party more power to vote a member into this spot who will be on the election board for Georgia's counties. This Senate bill includes a bunch of information that is really good to read and see how much this will disproportionately affect the poor and black communities with limited access to identification as well as transport to get to the absentee ballot drop-off boxes, and how it will drastically reduce voter turnout because of the new restrictions on food and water being brought to the lines, as well as spacing restrictions at the poll stations themselves, and now the Republican Party having more say in who is elected onto the election board that will sway Georgia's new election laws in unfair ways. I disagree that Georgia's Senate Bill 202 will positively impact the counties, and my response to how will Georgia's new election law impact free and fair elections on the county level, I again believe that it will disproportionately affect poor and black communities so that they have less voting access, as well as general less access to voting because of restrictions on absentee ballot boxes, forms of identification, as well as restrictions on standing in line, and because of the Republican power in Georgia's voting now as of July 1st. So when you're standing in line on a hot summery day, you are dehydrated, you are sweating, you are hungry, you have been there for hours, you know your friends couldn't come because they lived too far away, or they were too busy, or they didn't have the right forms of identification, you can be sure that it is because of Georgia's new unfair election laws. Thank you.